Hi, welcome to the show. On February 20th, I recorded a video saying that the US will attack Iran and will do a regime change, while many experts at that time predicted that the US will never attack Iran. Well, I turned out to be right. And the US and Israel started the attack on Iran on February 28th, last Saturday. So we are now entering the seventh day of war. And I want to do a summary of what has happened and make my predictions as to what will happen. Okay. So there have been a lot of surprises in this consequential war. Number one is, of course, the US and Israel eliminated Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, in the first hour of the attack. That was just unbelievable. And it goes to show how the Iranian regime had totally misunderstood and underestimated Trump's resolve. They thought he was just bluffing, that he's just a businessman who wants to make a deal. He would not dare to start a huge war. And of course, they were wrong. And I don't know, it's just so. The Iranian government seems just so delusional, right? In just about any other situation, once the leader, and well, in this case, it was not just Khamenei. They killed about 50 other top leaders. Like these were like the defense ministers, the leaders of the IRGC, the leaders of the intelligence. So basically, the top 49, I believe, top nearly 50 people got killed at the same time, and the government still refuses to surrender. It's like trying to deal with the suicide bomber, you know. And now they have lost complete control over their the airspace. The U.S. and Israel have been bombing Tehran nonstop for the last week, and they have no defense, but they still keep fighting. And the foreign minister of Iran comes on TV and says, "We are ready for a ground invasion." It's just utter madness. And interestingly, there was also this Hollywood style spying that led to the killing of Khamenei. Apparently, the Israelis had hacked some of the traffic cameras in Tehran. So they knew exactly when what do you call those people? Security services who are there to protect the top leaders. And they also hacked some of the phones of the bodyguards. So that's how they were able to predict. They knew that Khamenei and all the other leaders were gathering for a meeting. And the Iranian regime apparently thought that no, we are having a negotiation, and plus the Israelis always attack only at nighttime, so we're safe. So then all these people they got together at the compound at around 9:30 in the morning, and the Israelis launched 200 fighter jets. Okay, so they started at 7:30. They flew for an hour towards Iran, and then they released these brand new ballistic missiles. So these ballistic missiles flew for an hour from 8:30 to 9:30, and then they landed on Khamenei's compound at around 9:30. And this also shows how the Iranians lack the technology to track the fighter jets and the missiles. And this may also shine bad on China because China had played a major role in the Iranian military. The Chinese provided all the satellite functions, the radar functions, the cyber technology, all kinds of stuff. So this is going to look really bad on China as well. And what was amazing is that there was no rallying under the flag effect. Usually when a country is attacked, all the citizens they support the leader. But in this case, it was shocking. Okay, so right after the news came out, so the government did not announce right away that Khamenei had died. They waited for almost 16, 17 hours before they announced. So it was around 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in Iran when the news came out, and the people rushed to the streets. Everybody was dancing. They were all shouting, "Death to Khamenei! Long live the Shah!" Javid Shah was the slogan. They were all shouting Javid Shah, and they were playing music and dancing. Women without hijab, they let their hair down and they were dancing. Because under the Islamic Republic of Iran, women cannot show their hair, they cannot sing, they cannot dance in public. And here are young women and even the older women singing and dancing without hijab on the streets at like 2 in the morning. And there were also videos from the morning. As soon as Tehran was bombed, you could see these young boys from this high school. They were all shouting and they were saying, "Thank you, Mr. Trump." Can you imagine? "Thank you, Mr. Trump," when he bombs your country. So that shows how much the people want the regime change. And, there were many reasons, right? One is just the suffocating theocracy that really micromanages your life at every level. And then number two is the economy. The value of the Iranian rial has fallen precipitously. It's now like 1.7 million rial for $1. Okay. Back when the Shah was in charge, it was 70 rials, 70. And it had stayed constant, for like 20 years. It was basically 70 rial per $1. So it was a very stable economy, very prosperous economy. And then after the Islamic Revolution, Khomeini and then Khamenei, they made it their core ideology to be anti-American and anti-Israel, and they just needlessly caused suffering for their own people. So they had this like a delusion that somehow this one country, Iran, is going to take on the entire Western civilization. It's very delusional, and people have suffered so much. And then, of course, in January, when the Iranians protested, uh, like something like 36 to 40,000 people were killed in just 2 days. So these paramilitary groups known as Besiege, they would just drive around with pickup trucks and machine guns loaded in the back of the pickup trucks, and they would just shoot people. And in one situation, there were a lot of protesters, a few hundred protesters were stuck in a bazaar, and the IRGC or the Iranian police or the Basij, they shut the bazaar and they set the bazaar on fire, just burning alive their own people just because they are protesting. So there are no basic rights in Iran. There's no freedom of speech, there's no freedom of media, there's no freedom to protest, there's no freedom to organize your own political party that is not subjected to Khamenei's rule. Women don't have so many basic rights. Women are like third class citizens. It's sort of just like one step better than the Taliban. Okay. So, because in Iran, women can go to college, they can get some jobs, but there are so many other ways they are subjected to brutal religious laws. Okay. So, and here is something even more ridiculous. Iran, has been singing the slogans of death to America, death to Israel for 47 years. So finally, there's a chance, right? Like, finally, there is a real war. They had a war against Israel last year in June, but now it's even more serious because the Israelis killed Khamenei. So you would think that the Iranians would focus their entire effort to destroy Israel, right? So death to Israel is like their number one slogan. And then number two is death to America. And, because the Iranian regime since 1979 has taken up the mantle of defending Palestinians. Okay. So nobody asked Iran to become the number one champion of Palestine, but they just took it upon them, because that's their number one reason they're so popular among the Western leftists and communists, because Iran fights for Palestinians. Given all that, you would think that after Israel killed Khamenei, the Iranian government would focus its entire effort to destroying Israel. Well, no. What happened was, for the last 6 weeks, much of the bombs, the missiles, and the drones have been aimed at the neighbors, at the Arab neighbors. Okay, so for example, the UAE. The UAE has been attacked by 1,000 drones and 200 ballistic missiles from Iran. It's so ridiculous. And they're bombing the refineries of Saudi Arabia. They're bombing the LNG infrastructure of Qatar. They're bombing the oil refineries in Bahrain. They're trying to destroy the energy infrastructure of the Middle East, and then they're bombing the airports, the hotels, residential buildings, and yes, and then they're also bombing the U.S. military bases in the region. But their biggest focus has been civilian and the energy infrastructure. So this is a mad military strategy and also a mad geopolitical strategy, because all their neighbors, like 12 or 13 of them, they now hate Iran, and they're trying to figure out a way to punish Iran. But the U.S. has asked all these countries to not to launch a war, because you don't want to have like 12 different fighter jets from 12 different countries flying in the air, and then they'll be shooting down each other. So to avoid the chaos, the U.S. and the Israelis, who have planned this whole thing together, they've told the Arab countries, don't do anything, we will take care of it. So these countries, they're just using the American defense systems like the Patriots and the THAAD to fight off the Iranian offense. And they've done a pretty good job. So the UAE, for example, has shot down something like 90% of the drones and 95% of the ballistic missiles. But still, when they send 1,000 over and you stop 90, that means you still got attacked by 100. So there's still a lot of damage. And the Strait of Hormuz, which is where like 25% of the world's oil and gas pass through, that is the small passage, the water passage, and on the north side is Iran. So that traffic has now, it's not zero, but it's very close to zero. And it's going to have a huge impact on the world price of oil if this continues for another week or two. But thankfully, the US has completely destroyed the Iranian Navy. So the Iranian Navy had like 30 warships. The US has destroyed just about every one of them, gone. And there was this huge ship. It was called it was like the mothership of drones that the Iranian regime was so proud of. They made so many propaganda videos. They said, "Oh yeah, this ship can be in the ocean for 1 year." And we will launch drones and planes and helicopters from it, and we'll be able to project power. And that huge ship is already blown away. Okay, so the U.S. Bombed it. I don't think it has sunk, but it basically has become unusable. So the Iranian regime has lost its navy. It really never had like the Air Force. They just have some fighter jets from the US and from the Soviet Union from 1960s and the early 1970s. So those are all being shot down even by Qatar. So they have basically no navy and no air force, and they also don't have any the air defense. Okay, so what kind of a military strategy is just based on missiles and drones? Okay, so they're saying, yeah, we're going to send missiles and drones at all the neighbors, but we don't have anything to defend ourselves. We cannot shoot down drones. We cannot shoot down missiles. We cannot stop the fighter jets. We cannot, we have no defense, but we're going to just depend on the offense, which is missiles and drones, which 90 to 95% get shot down. So, and they're turning everybody into the enemy. Take the UAE, for example. The UAE is the most important friend of Iran in terms of linking to the global financial system. So the US has had very strong financial sanctions against Iran, but the UAE, the banks in the UAE, the rich people in the UAE, they secretly help the Iranian regime transact with the rest of the world. So this has been going on for a long time. So it would make zero sense for the Iranian regime to attack the UAE, which is the key pillar for the Iranian economy. So that's pretty ridiculous. And now, the U.S. and Israel haven't stopped. They've been attacking Iran non-stop. Uh, so they have destroyed so many government buildings in Tehran and elsewhere. So they have, for example, destroyed the presidential office, the old parliament, the IRGC, which is the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Council, and that's the most powerful institution in Iran. The IRGC controls like 40 to 50% of the Iranian economy. They control the nuclear program, the ballistic missile program, and so on. So it's like a parallel military that reports to the supreme leader. Okay, because when Khomeini came to power in 1979, he was very afraid that the military will stage a coup on him. They will try to kill him. So he created his own military, the IRGC, and then to gain the loyalty, he gave them the power to control all the banks, all the telecom, the real estate stuff, so many businesses, the seaports, the oil revenue, and so on. So the IRGC is very corrupt, but they control the economy. They have a lot of money and a lot of power. So, and now the US and Israel have been destroying systematically all the infrastructure of the IRGC, all the headquarters, all the branches, and they're even bombing the police stations, which is actually very smart because the police stations are the ones where the repression I mean, it happens at the local level, right? So you have the besiege. These are the paramilitary thugs who drive around in motorcycles and they kill people, they beat up people, they arrest, they torture, they rape, right? And then the police work with the besiege, right? So the besiege can send people to the police station where they'll be tortured, raped, murdered, and so on. So now the U.S. and Israel are targeting specific and notorious police stations in Tehran. And once these guys they lose their power and they start to run away, because these guys are all cowards and they know they have done many terrible things to the Iranian people. So once they know that they have lost, okay, they're going to run. And when they run, the Iranian people can take over the government institutions as Trump um, has requested. Okay. Now it's not all great for the allies, the U.S., Israel, and others, because the number one problem is that they are running out of the interceptors. So now it's a battle of logistics, right? Who has more missiles? Who has more the interceptors? So, and because if there is one missile, a ballistic missile, you cannot just send one interceptor. Sometimes they shoot four, five, six, seven interceptors based on the speed of the missile. So it's very expensive to uh, to shoot down the missiles. So in this race, the Iranian government has an edge. But, but there is a catch. So the catch is now the U.S., the Americans, and the Israelis are hunting down two things. One are the launchers for the missiles and the drones, right? Because you shoot down, you destroy one launcher, now you have stopped maybe 30, 40 missiles from being launched. So they have all these high tech, the electronic equipment to monitor the country, Iran, and they see where they are being launched from, and then they look for the launchers and they attack the launchers. Now, this is not so easy because if you look at the country of Iran, it's four times the size of Germany, actually 4.5 times the size of Germany. Okay, so it's like 1.6 million square kilometer. So it's a huge country. So it's very hard to find the launchers, which could be like, some of them are mobile launchers. They just look like a big truck. Like if you look at those 16-wheeler trucks, that could be a missile launcher. So the US has to find that using satellites and the AWACS and spy drones way up in the sky. So it's very hard, but they're doing a pretty good job. So far, they have destroyed uh, two-thirds of all the missile launchers. Okay, so that's why the number of missiles that have been launched from Iran have dropped dramatically. So on the first day, Iran launched 350 or so missiles, and now it's down to 30. So, like 90% down. Similarly, the number of drones launched are also down about 80%. And the Israelis have found a very smart way to shoot down the drones, right? So the drones fly at around 120 miles per hour. So it's not like super, super fast. So what the Israelis are doing now is to have these, the helicopters with special guns, and like they have larger bullets. These are not like regular bullets from your rifle, but these are much bigger bullets, and each bullet costs like $300. Okay, and these drones, they cost $30,000. So they're now destroying the Iranian drones, the Shahed drones, with cheap bullets, relatively cheap bullets. So rather than sending like $1 million interceptor, and now all you need is to fly the helicopter way above the drones and then shoot down the drones. So that's pretty smart. Now, the other thing that very, very important, and it may be a game changer, is for the Americans and the Israelis to destroy the so-called missile cities. So these are huge underground cities that are filled with missiles. Okay, so there may be like 500 missiles or 1,000 missiles in this one large underground tunnel complex. Okay, and so now the US and Israel are using all kinds of AI and satellite photos to figure out where these are. And they are, first they are dropping bunker busting bombs on top of these missile cities, and some may work, some may not work, because these missile cities are often built inside the mountains. Okay, so you have very, very hard rocks covering them. So that may not work 100% of the time. And then the second way is to bomb the entrances of the city, of these missile cities. So that's a lot easier, right? So you bomb the entrance, and then it may take a day or two for the Iranian regime to remove the blockage of the entrance. So that's one way to to get some time and to figure out other ways to attack. Because it's a lot easier to solve the problem at the source. Okay. Now, the internet blackout. Okay, so the day that Khamenei died, we saw all kinds of amazing videos. Right, people would be thanking Trump when they see a bombing. They would be cheering. They would be shouting, "Death to Khamenei! Death to dictator! Long live the Shah!" They were just so happy. Uh, so I mean, immediately on Saturday night, February 28th, and the early morning 29th, the regime once again shut down the entire country. So 90 million people don't have access to the internet. So the only uh, stuff we get are like, some people who just manage to get lucky to connect to a VPN, or maybe somebody has a Starlink, and not a whole lot of information. Okay. And Okay. So, what's going to happen? The Iranian regime on social media posts a lot of stupid stuff. Okay. They have a whole bunch of army, social army, paid social army propagandists who post fake news, the AI photos, photos manipulated or created by the AI, videos created by AI, where they show the Iranian missiles raining upon Tel Aviv, and bringing down the American B-1, B-2, B-52 bombers, all this kind of stupid stuff. And their latest, the excuse among these social media warriors is that Iran has this missile called Khorramshahr missiles. It's supposed to have 1,000 kilogram of warhead munition, and that is supposed to destroy Israel. Okay, so they're like, yeah, we just sent the cheaper missiles first, and you don't know what's coming. Wait for Khorramshahr. So we don't know if that's true or not. We will see. But I think the US and the Israelis are pretty smart people. They will figure out how to defend these Khorramshahr missiles, or just neutralize them at the source. Okay. And, in my last video, I gave three reasons: geopolitics, military, and petrodollar. So, those are all the same reasons why the US is not going to stop the war, or go for a ceasefire or any sort of negotiation. They've come so close, they're going to finish the job. And my prediction is that within the next 2 weeks, the Iranian regime will run out of all missiles and drones. And probably the US is hunting the production facilities as well. So there are no new missiles or drones. And once that happens, then it'll be a situation where Iran has no defense and no offense. Okay. And then it's just a terrible situation. And then the only thing they can hope for is to sit in Tehran and say, we're not going to surrender. Okay, we don't care how much you bomb. We're going to hide ourselves in schools, mosques, and the hospitals, and we're going to prepare for a ground war. The urban guerrilla warfare, like Stalingrad or something. That would be the stupidest thing because the people don't support the government. Okay, so a lot of the Iranians are going to rise up against their own government. So if these people are hoping for some kind of the urban war, it's not going to happen because the people will be supporting Mr. Trump. But it's going to be very hard for the Iranian government to surrender because these people have done so many horrible things to the Iranian people. They have stolen so many hundreds of billions of dollars from the Iranian people. They've done so many horrible things that they know that they're going to be ripped apart by the people, by the mob. Okay. So, well, either they have to surrender to the US and spend the rest of their lives in prison, or they will be slaughtered by their own people. It's very bad. Two options for these people. So we will see what happens. The next 2 weeks will be the most critical in this war. Okay, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon. Bye.